Hey you guys, I thought I would come and give you an update about Watson because now what was happening last time? I told you that he had cancer and we were waiting to go to the cancer specialist, to the Dick Vet hospital. So we went and he had a lot of tests. We were there at 8:30 in the morning and got to see somebody. No, 9:30. Sorry, we left at 8:30 and got to have a long conversation with somebody who explained all the tests they were doing, but he wasn't being taken until like just after lunchtime, so we had to leave him there, which was just awful. Kev and I went off we actually went to a McDonald's. I'd never tasted a sausage and egg McMuffin, and Kev's obsessed with them. He said, this is the only bad food I'll recommend for you, and it was tasty. We were just trying to, we wanted to just get our boy, but we couldn't. We needed to wait, so we did that. We were waiting, just sitting there waiting for the phone to ring, because they said they might phone us if he got taken in early. So what he was having done was he was having sedation, getting sedated, and he was having they were checking his lymph nodes with an ultrasound and then doing an ultrasound guided biopsy. They were doing a liver biopsy and a spleen biopsy, and then they were doing x-rays of his chest and tummy area. So that was good. And they were doing obviously a good inspection of his little willy, because that's where the lump is. They didn't resample the lump. This was the results they gave us. This is what they told us, that they didn't resample the lump because it's barely there. You can literally barely see it. If you looked at his winkle, you wouldn't know there was anything different to any other. If you look very closely, there's a dark patch, but the hair's starting to grow over it again. Anyway, I had actually shaved it in order for the first inspection, if you like, at the vet. But you can barely see anything. It's so small. So what they had said was when they were trying to extrude the penis from the foreskin, because it's on the foreskin, but they needed to obviously check the rest of it, that it was really, really difficult. And they thought that there was all sand in it. And actually, it's a separate issue, but there was all sand and dirt inside the foreskin next to the penis, and so it was actually quite painful for them to extrude it. And even under sedation, they were saying he was reacting. So they kind of had to flush it all out, but it then swelled up and it was all swollen, and they said that that's a typical MCT reaction. And so because of that, they didn't want to irritate it or disturb any of the mast cells in the tumour by resampling it. But they said the way that it reacted, the fact of his history, the fact that we had this positive mast cell tumour sample, just kind of doubly confirms that it is a mast cell tumour. And that's important to us, because I actually only got the phone call yesterday, which is, he was in on Friday and yesterday was Tuesday, Wednesday. So we had to wait 5 days to get the results of whether it had spread or not fully, because the only thing they could tell us on Friday when we went to pick him up was that it hadn't gone into his chest. The chest x-ray was clear. And so the rest, we needed to wait for the results of the biopsy. And so, yeah, she phoned me yesterday. They did. I think I was just saying that they didn't take any extra samples of the lump, but there's barely anything to see. Oh, I know. I was saying to her on the phone that I just wasn't sure whether we needed to have it sampled again, because I know that you can get false positives for mast cell tumours, but she said no, the way that it reacted when they were checking it means that it's definitely a mast cell. Between that, like I said, his history of having 2 mast cell tumours and also the positive results. So it was just something we were kind of, I guess, clutching at straws, and hoping that it might be a mistake and that he doesn't really have it, because you can't see anything. Honestly, if you looked at it, it looks so normal. It's madness. So what she told us on Friday was that the kind of number one option is surgery, which we kind of knew. That is, he's had it twice before, but he's had it one on his neck, one under his arm. And surgery to just remove it, take margins, is the usual option. And where they were before, that was an easy choice, if you like, because it was a straightforward surgery. I mean, it was horrendous, pretty intense surgery, but, but this time, with it being where it is in this tender area, it's difficult. But she said the extra challenge is because it is so small, because we can't see it. So that means they can't see margins. But the initial option is to do a penile amputation, to cut off his willy and to do a stoma and a new urethra. But there's no way we're putting him through that. Absolutely no way. We've both been quite, thankfully, Kev and I agree, because I was like, God, imagine if we didn't agree. But both of us have just been like, no, Absolutely not. So we've said a hard no to that. They do keep on bringing it up because I think that's the option that kind of, that's curative. You know, they do that and then they will definitely get all the cancer and there's no chance of any being left behind. But they're just not doing that. He's nearly 11 years old. He's been through enough in his life. No, not doing that. So the second option is to discuss with his specialist surgeon whether or not they can take the tumour off, which is on his foreskin, but it's how much skin the surgeon thinks he can take to have enough skin left over to stretch over to cover his winkle, because they can't leave his winkle exposed because that would cause problems, but also to get enough margins to think that they've got all of the cancer. So that's the tricky bit. And I guess if the surgeon doesn't think he can do the operation and have a good chance of getting the cancer, then he's not going to offer it, because I get that. They're not going to put a dog through surgery if they think they're just going to be leaving cancer behind. But if he thinks there's some chance of him being able to take off a little bit and enough to potentially get all the cancer, so to get margins, then he will do it. I think there's a good chance, because I think we've called it super early. So I'm hopeful for that. We're not 100% sure we're going to do this surgery. We want to meet with the surgeon and he will tell us the risks, the recovery time, the complications, potential complications, how his age comes into it, if at all of his blood results and what that means, because there were some anomalies. There was nothing major, but there were some anomalies in his blood work. His liver enzymes are raised, that kind of thing. So we'll listen to that and then we'll make a decision. But what the woman it was the oncologist I spoke to yesterday, and she was saying, it wouldn't be unreasonable to not do surgery because of his age and because of his history, because we don't want to put him through anything more. And that being the case, he could have supportive medication, which he's already on part of it, which is Piriton twice a day. So because it's a mast cell tumour, it produces histamines and they cause problems, they cause symptoms. So you can get Piriton for that, which he's on, and also omeprazole, which protects the tummy, because histamine can cause problems in the tummy. And then he can also get, she said that people talk about it as a chemotherapy, but it's not actually classed as chemotherapy. It's a tyrosine kinase inhibitor, I think, TKI. And that would stop the tumour getting bigger and or spreading until it didn't. It just, at some point, it stops working. The problem with that is it might cause him tummy problems, because it causes tummy problems for some people, and Watson has got inflammatory bowel disease and he's got very sensitive tummy. So it is something that I think we would maybe try, but it's just a tablet at home. It's nothing, it doesn't have to go in for treatment or anything. And the minute we saw any difference in his tummy, we'd stop it, because throughout his life, when he's been the most miserable and the most ill has been when his tummy's upset, because that obviously causes him pain with cramping, and he just is never himself. Whereas he's had cancer before twice and he was absolutely fine. He's had all sorts of things wrong with him, and it's when his tummy's upset. Sometimes his ear infections, to be fair, they cause him problems. So yeah, there's many considerations. One of the other considerations is we've had to stop his Apoquel, because Apoquel is something that doesn't cause cancer. People think this, but it doesn't cause cancer, but it could make, if a dog has cancer, it could make the cancer spread faster. And so there's no evidence for that. It's not known, but it is a concern. And there needs to be more studies to check that out. But because of that, you are recommended to stop Apoquel. And so that's what we've done. We've stopped it now, to find out if it's spread. And if we have the surgery, we'll wait until after the surgery and whether they've found, whether they have clear margins or not, until we put him back on a full dose. But we discussed with the oncologist last time, which was nearly 4 years ago since he's had cancer. It's been 4 years with nothing. And we discussed with him about Apoquel, and he agreed it was okay to keep him on it, because it's a kind of, you have to weigh up his quality of life, and his allergies have been so bad since we stopped the Apoquel. I think it was 2 weeks ago now, and he just had this day 2 days ago where he was just so distressed. He was attacking his paws. He jumped on our bed and tried to pull all the covers off with his teeth. and then he ran through onto the daybed and was trying to get all the covers off there. He just didn't know what to do with himself. He was so distressed from this itching, and I had washed his body, given him an allergy wash. I had put special stuff on his paws, and what you want to avoid when dogs have got allergies is breaking the skin, because that can then cause infection, and and his paws are bright red. Thankfully it's not gone to his ears so far. Normally he immediately gets an ear infection as soon as he's off Apoquel. So far he hasn't, and the thinking behind that is that the Apoquel stops, he starts itching, and even if you can't see cuts, I can sometimes see cuts on his ears, but they can have micro cuts, and that lets infection in, and they get an infection. So it's a big decision about the surgery, because obviously if we don't do the surgery and we put him back on Apoquel, there's a risk that we are going to cause it. The thinking is it will spread, because tumours in that area, sorry, I should have said tumours in that area are likely to spread. They can't give us a percentage because they don't know. There's no figures been done. There's no data. There's not enough data. It's not a common enough area. But in their experience, they're normally a high risk. They're normally a high grade tumour. So there is a chance that it's a low grade tumour. If it's a low grade tumour, it probably won't spread, but it could grow. But there's no way of finding that out without surgery. And so that's something we've got to consider, is if we don't do the surgery, not only do we then not know what grade it is, and we don't know if it's going to spread quickly. And if it spreads quickly, he could be gone in 4 months. That's the average. And if we give him Apoquel to make him have a good quality of life, it could spread even faster. So yeah, there's a big consideration there, because at first we weren't going to put him through surgery. At first we were very anti-surgery, and we were like, no, a definite no to surgery. Whereas now it's like, well, the alternative is not going to be a good end for him. Like, it's really important that we give him a good end of life. It's no, obviously we want him for as long as possible, but I don't want him to be ill and to be in pain, and even leaving him off the Apoquel, it's not a good quality of life. Definitely not in the summer. He could probably cope with it a little bit better in the winter. Like I said, he's already distressed, and so we gave him half an Apoquel, and that seems to have made him back not so distressed, and not sort of attacking his paws and dragging his bum and scratching his ear, and he makes all of it under here. It goes bright red. Honestly, it looks so painful. It's just awful. People think it's something really sort of mild, and it's not. These allergies are not mild at all. So it's the most difficult decision we've ever had to make. And at the minute, we just need to wait. We're waiting for, they're sending us what's called a discharge letter, even though we're not. I'm just making sure it's not here. No, it's not here. It will detail everything in this letter, and she's going to get a date for the surgeon for us. So I don't know how quickly that'll be. Hopefully it's going to be quick, because they know that this could be an aggressive thing moving fast. So hopefully it'll be quick, the appointment. And we'll see what he's got to say, and then ask him just to give us a couple of days to think about it and take it from there. I think the worst thing will be, the best case scenario is that he said it's a really mild surgery. It's a day surgery, because we don't want him to stay there. There's rarely any complications, and I can see that I should be able to get most of it, or all of it, sorry. I should be able to get good margins, and there's a good chance I can get it all. In which case I can see us doing it, even though, like I said, we weren't initially going to do it. But that's a chance of a cure, if it goes that way. That is a chance that that's it, they got it all. We also have to be okay with the fact that if we put him through that, there is a chance that they didn't get it all. There's a chance they come back and say they didn't get clear margins. But, they didn't get clear margins on his neck tumour, and nothing's ever happened. They got clear margins on the one under his arm, but they didn't on the neck one. So yeah, but we have to be okay with that. I know that. The problem is if he says, I can have a go and see how much margins I get, or if he says this is going to be painful for him in recovery to pee, or you know, anything like that is going to be a hard decision to make, because do you put him through that short term? Most people, when you say it, they go, no, don't put him through surgery. You can't. He's nearly 11 years old, blah, blah, blah. He's a very healthy 10-year-old, let me tell you. He runs around, he does Zoomers. You've seen his recent video. He is a healthy 10-year-old and he's living his best life. His worst life was when he was young, you know, and he had all the tummy problems. He's living his best life. So he's a healthy 10-year-old, and it would be a short-term thing, you know, like a couple of weeks, we're imagining, recovery, before he could go back to his sociable hounds life and, you know, all the rest of it. For potentially a cure. And the alternative is to know that it will spread and to sit and watch him go through, you know, it spreading and causing him whatever it will cause, but also potentially either watching him suffer with allergies or giving him the Apoquel and making it spread faster and never knowing how much time we've got left with him and watching him die a horrible death. You know, that's just, well, we won't, I know that you have to get to that point. This is the awful thing about having pets. You have to, you know, you're not going to put them down while they're healthy, and you have to choose the right time where they're suffering, but not suffering too much, if you know what I mean. I don't know how people make that decision. I really don't. And obviously that's not what we want. We don't want to watch him and, oh, it's just awful. It's like I said, I could ramble about this continuously and I've been crying this morning. Sometimes we're okay. Kev's been crying. Sometimes we're okay. Sometimes we're not. We've both been crying at the same time. Then one of us is crying and the other one's comforting them, and then we're both crying and neither of us know what to do. You know, it's just awful. Other people that know him have been crying. Everybody's crying over Watson because he's such a special little boy, and dogs are, aren't they? They are so special. So anyway, I'm going to leave this because, like I said, I could go on, and there just isn't an easy answer. But as always, I'm happy to hear people's opinion. But I want to see what the surgeon says, and we'll take it from there. So. Yeah, thanks so much for listening, and I'll speak to you again soon. I'll keep you updated on what we're doing, obviously. After we've seen the surgeon, I'll come and do another video. So
that's not really in the box, is it? Can you put it in the box? Can you get that in the box? In the box. Good boy. That's it. What about these? Do you think these can go in the box? In the box. Good boy. Good boy. Any more? Oh, we're taking them out again. What about this one? Oh, I'm getting that back because you like me to throw this one, don't you? You ready? Catch it! Oh! Good boy, you ready? Are you ready? Oh! Are you ready? Oh, 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 oh! Are you ready? Yes! Good boy.